Welcome back to Hardcore Connections. Today we are with Senator Fernandes from the Barnstable and Plymouth County area. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be with you guys.
It's awesome to have you, brother. So I was just hoping that you could tell us a little bit more about your experience with mental health and substance abuse and kind of what got you into becoming a senator and trying to lead different bills to help the broader community.
Yeah. Well, I mean, growing up, of course, you know, my stepfather and his family have been in this space for years and have worked for 4 decades in the kind of mental health substance misuse space. So, you know, at a young age became familiar with some of the issues. And then, you know, I came of age in the height of the opioid epidemic and saw a lot of my friends, especially kids I played sports with, you know, get some sort of injury and then just get prescribed a ton of oxy and, you know, before you knew it, develop some sort of dependence on it. And, you know, too many of the people that I went to school with and knew have died from overdoses. And so, you know, it's sadly was a part of my life from a young age. And so when I got involved in public service, I knew I wanted to be one of the things that I focused on was keeping people alive, getting people access to treatment so that they can have a full life and recover and you know, get over, you know, or work to get over, you know, this disease that's so impactful.
Yeah. That's really cool. So I remember in the past that you mentioned that the best way to combat substance use and mental health is to prevent it. What are some ideas that you've already put in place or that you're thinking about to further help prevent the use of illicit drugs and help with mental health?
Yeah, well, there's a few things. There's there's prevention, there's treatment, and then there's, you know, long-term recovery. I mean, on the prevention side, I think it's really important to really, you know, focus in on education and then also focus in on opportunity. So, you know, educating people about the harms of these drugs to make sure that they're not getting in there. Educating, and this has been really important in Massachusetts, educating healthcare professionals about good prescribing practices, because a lot of that led to where we are today. And so the state has really tightened that quite a bit. And so that's been a real positive. When you go get your tonsils removed, they're not automatically giving you like 30 Percocets or whatever, which, you know, you probably could do fine with just some Advil. Things like that have kind of reshaped prescribing practices that led to this overflow of OxyContin. Obviously, the state's been actively involved in lawsuits against the Sackler family and Purdue Pharma, kind of on the prevention front as well. So there's a lot there around prescribing practices, education, and then of course law enforcement too, when it comes to trying to stem the flow. Now mostly it's fentanyl, which is different. I'm fortunate to have missed that in my childhood. That's really kind of become the largest part of the opioid epidemic. But that's on the prevention side of things. You know, that's been a big part of the focus. Yeah.
Of that. So you hit the nail on the head. There's 3 parts to it, right? There's prevention, intervention, and recovery, right? And thank you for speaking candidly about, you know, your lived experience, you know, and it's close to home, right? Being 4th generation from Falmouth, you know, we know that, you know, it's not the only area that is impacted, you know, but to be a different generation, what I mean by that is stigma is slowly but surely subsiding, right? And I feel like, you know, individuals like ourselves, you know, with lived experience and yourself, right, can use that lived experience to advocate differently, right? A different level of passion that is in there, right? And instead of exacerbating some of the stigmas that we've seen historically associated with treatment modalities, getting education out there, right? You know, I feel like if 10 years ago we said, well, we want education in the schools for opioid overdose, you know, signs, symptoms, and treatment for this, people would have dug in their heels and not around my kids, right? But I think now the generation that it's in, we know it's everywhere, right? You know, lived experience is a valuable asset and commodity in the treatment world. What shift, if any, are you seeing at a legislation level or a higher up level as far as being acceptance of some of these stigmas, some of these historic stigmas?
Yeah, I mean, we're still always trying to overcome some of the stigma.
Sure.
A lot of good work's happened, but a lot still persists, unfortunately. We've passed some major opioid legislation through the legislature. Massachusetts spends around $1 billion a year just on addiction treatment and recovery, which is a huge sum of money. We've done a lot around accessibility of Narcan and other life-saving drugs. And I think that accessibility really, and education too, around how to use it, getting people trained, getting people carrying it, has led to a huge drop not a huge drop, but a significant drop in the amount of opioid overdose deaths that we've seen. So not only, it's been a good thing, not only have we seen like a stop at like a plateau of death rates going up, because that happened for well over a decade, but we're finally seeing a bit of a drop off. So some of these things have really been working. There's more to do there. And then on the prevention piece, I failed to mention this. We actually have legislation around that we filed this year, and it's around non-opioid pain relief. Around 1.25 adults in America and here in Massachusetts live with some form of chronic pain. I've had my own issues with chronic pain throughout my life. There's very few treatment options outside of opioids that are readily available, but we know that are covered by insurance, but we know that a lot others exist. So our legislation gives those types of treatment options the same amount of healthcare coverage as opioids. So that's massage therapy, that's physical therapy, that's acupuncture if it's helpful. And then Vertex Pharmaceuticals, which is in Massachusetts as well, they just came out with the first approved in decades pain relief medication that's not opioid based. So that would also kind of help with that coverage as well. And they're seeing good signs there. So hopefully, because the most important part is actually, I think, on the prevention side, because once people start becoming addicted and having to go in and out of treatment, having other things, then it becomes quite expensive, not only for them and their family, but also the state. And so, prevention is really important. But then on the stigma side, that's a huge impediment to getting people the support and care and harm reduction pieces that we know are so effective that they need. And I think that's, the next frontier here is, how do we break down barriers to stigma that is preventing people from getting the care they need.
Sure, right. But providing that, getting that education out there, that's where we at Hardcore Connections kind of pride ourselves is to speak to some of those benefits of harm reduction. Harm reduction is an evidence-based tool, right? To someone that's not hip or not in the know, right? See it as enabling or giving individuals the ability to continue using, which is so far from the truth. Being a person in long-term recovery that also struggled with chronic pain, is just as my disease was progressive, my recovery also was as well, right? And so how do we give individuals a safe space, right? Whether that's, a syringe exchange like PCOPE here in Plymouth, whether that's some of these OPCs that we're seeing, which overdose prevention centers opening across the nation, as low barrier access point for support services, right? People just met without judgment, with compassion, and providing that education, right? We know a lot now about this disease. We know a lot about opioids. The lie is dead with the marketing, right? And I'm not going to bash, Purdue or the Sacklers or any of that jazz. I don't want to open that can, but I love that, we're starting to explore and make the information readily available for some of the other alternative measures that are non-addicting, or don't have the same detriment attached to them. So I know that's a controversial topic too. Individuals. I saw this thing on TikTok with a judge. It was saying, well, like now people are forced to struggle with their pain. And that's not what anyone wants. No one wants anyone to see anyone struggle. But we're going to make sure that we're treading cautiously with these new treatments that are coming out or access to them. And kind of playing that tape through. But I'm curious. I want to ask you. We're talking about education. I know one of the bills that you're co-sponsoring is that S382, which is trying to mandate, education in public schools about opioid use. Could you speak a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, well, look, I think this is a part of getting at the prevention side of things. Is talking to kids at a young age. about its impacts and about how, especially on the opioid front of things, like the morphine molecule is such a powerful thing that, just after, it doesn't take a lot of uses to become addicted. And so educating people about just how addictive that is and what the potential impacts are long term, I think is an important thing to do. I think, giving kids more information about that is good. And, I think it's important that any of these programs are really evidence-based. We know that the whole kind of just say no thing did not work. And basically the war on drugs didn't work either, right? Like it was both of those things, the data shows were pretty big failures. And so I think just having candid adult conversations about educating kids about the impacts of opioids and other types of drugs too, recognizing that still actually alcohol is the biggest, alcohol and cigarettes are both the biggest causes of much bigger death rates than opioids still in our country. So I think that education is really important, and the younger you have those conversations that are evidence-based, the more prevention you have to allow people to not be impacted.
I agree that education is important. Do you foresee, like in the schools as well, since there's a lot of kids out there who may have family members affected by opioid use disorder, maybe not only education, but supports or connections and avenues to supports to help them, say they're struggling with a mom or dad who are going through addiction issues, maybe some resources that can help them, or maybe even help the parents at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good idea. I don't know if that's a part of the bill or not, but maybe that's something we can add on. I really like that. We've seen a lot, and this is tragic, but we've seen a lot of grandparents raising their grandkids because the parents have passed away from opioid overdoses. There's a school in Falmouth, elementary school. There's 4 elementary schools in Falmouth, and just at one of them, in a period of 4 years, I think 6 parents died from an opioid overdose. And that's a tremendous, so not only is there then, grandparents helping raise kids, but just the psychological and mental toll of that, of course on the kids, but then also on the broader community is quite impactful. So I think it's really important. A lot of these things are co-occurring. I think it's really important to have mental health resources intertwined into these services. And we've been working really hard on that too. The state was actually trying to shut down the Pecasset mental health facility, the only state-run mental health facility in our district and the Plymouth and Barnstable district. And we really pushed back against that. We were actually able in this past budget to get them the $4.8 million they need to continue operating. So we were able to save that facility here. And that is, it's treating people with mental health issues, but oftentimes those are co-occurring issues as well. So I think, you really got to take kind of a holistic approach to these subjects, these issues, because it's so much is a part of it. And it's not just, mental health stuff, but also, housing and financial security play a huge role in these issues as well. I mean, it's really hard to get into recovery if you don't have, mental health support, but it's hard to get either of those if you don't have a roof over your head or a paycheck to help stabilize yourself financially. So I think we have to think about these things not just as siloed events, but how can we support people, help, or just give people a foundation so that they can take their personal responsibility to achieve that recovery on their own terms in ways that they then can become, functioning and full members of society that are giving back and but they need a lot of those kind of those basic supports to help them achieve that so that they can then grow from there.
And well done, dude, because locking in that $4 million, because I was part of that advocacy. I'm on the Southeast Area Board for DMH and president here in Plymouth of the site board, and that was a big thing that we were doing for advocacy and writing letters. We're going up to the State House, meeting with senators, and it was really cool to see how well received, right, some of this advocacy is, and just the I'll say buy-in, for lack of a term, the importance of mental health, right, which, my brain goes back to back to that prevention piece, right, because I know for a lot of myself, right, it was those underlying issues prior to engaging in risky behaviors and utilizing substance, alcohol, cannabis, and then illicit opioids, right, that I learned after the fact was very much self-medication, all right, so to kind of destigmatize some of that, underlying mental illness that can coincide or kind of exacerbate the risk, for substance use disorder to develop, and make that a key component of it too, to destigmatize that. We talk about feelings and stuff, and if we don't work through these things, we're going to engage in unhealthy behaviors at any capacity, whether it's, smashing more McDonald's, whether it's buying all the Air Maxes, or whether it's using illicit substance, whatever it may be. But great move, something tangible. Right, to speak to your level of advocacy, right, and your passion and drive to not only work to affect positive change, but get it done. Right, but get it done, man. So
well, thank you, and that's why I ran for this job, and that's why I do this work. To me, at the end of the day, it's all about impact, and I think that's what public service should be all about. It's about listening to the community, and then also just delivering. Like, it's really important to me that we are not just talking about the work, but are actually doing the work and getting stuff done. I usually use a different word than that, but like getting it done, and this was a part of that, saving this mental health facility in our district, or, we passed, I think now, just around 40 amendments into law in a very short period of time. And so we just really care about getting it done and delivering for this area. I think the Plymouth area needs extra support and is often overlooked at the state level. And so it's really important to me that we have someone up there fighting for Plymouth and the greater Plymouth area at the State House. And me and my team, we're going to continue to do that and be that voice for you guys, because I know you guys are doing awesome work, and we're so proud to support you guys. But then there's so many other issues here as well that need someone championing them.
Oh, a better person to have at the helm, Dylan.
Hey.
You know what I mean? Passionate, driven, young, spry, and it's a different time, knowing what we know now, different generation, not knocking in the previous generations, we learned a lot from, but where do we go from here, and then see tangible change. Like you hit the nail on the head. Plymouth County is trending downwards in opioid overdose deaths, and has, for the last 18 to 24 months or so, which is a prime example that speaks to the testament of the phenomenal work, that goes on, in this area, and we could use this as kind of that model. Right, and so like we speak to, we have phenomenal collaboration here. I think that we talk about this often. With the director of the Harm Reduction Center, directors of the recovery centers, is that most of us have a piece of lived experience, whether we're in long-term recovery ourselves or someone close and near to us. And that is why I can't let that go. That you need to be a person in recovery, but you have to have a personal connection to it to be able to advocate at a different level, right? And make some of these meaningful connections and change happen in the community. And how do we just rinse and repeat? So other areas, some of the phenomenal, the importance of collaboration and disseminating education out there, and streamlining communication, get rid of that Burger King versus McDonald's mentality. Griffin and I speak about this often. It's how do we just lock elbows and come together as a community to improve health equity as a whole? Get rid of, regardless of what party we're on, how we identify, things like that. Just how do we better support our community and grow? Yeah,
and it's a nonpartisan issue, and it should be. And I think the most fundamental role of government really is keeping people safe, keeping people healthy. And that's the foundation of that is supporting people with healthcare access. So important. Sadly, at the federal level, we're seeing huge cuts to that right now. They're going to trickle down to Massachusetts. So we have some headwinds ahead, but I think there's nothing more important in life than your own health and safety and the health and safety of your loved ones. And so I think that's fundamentally for government, its role should be protecting those two things and supporting those two things. And at least here in Massachusetts, we're going to continue to do that.
Yeah, love that. And what, if anything, advice or suggestions you give to Hardcore Connections? How could we be a different voice for advocacy, help support, the community, and what would you suggest?
Well, I think you guys do a great job. I mean, I'd say just keep doing what you're doing. I mean, supporting people who need it. You guys, you really lead with empathy, which I think is such an important thing, especially for people struggling with addiction. And so, just keep doing your thing, and and then keep fighting the issues around stigma. I think that's really important. I think you've mentioned we've made it far. I think we can all be proud of how far we've come, but we still have ways to go. And there are other countries, other states that have gone farther and are doing more, in my view, to save people. And not just my view, just statistically, and the data bears it out, to save people when it comes to harm reduction and OPCs and the like. And I think that's probably the next frontier in this, and trying to save lives and keep people alive, because we need to keep them alive to get them into that long-term recovery and living fuller, happier lives. So.
We do recover. Recovery is real.
It is real, and it's possible too.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Dylan, for joining us today. So that will wrap us up with Hardcore Connections today. We look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.